was to start the recording. And on this topic, before we jump into our inclusion, user groups, user lists, I want to highlight the fact that is available, the recordings of previous episodes are available on YouTube. You can look for Shure MIA, Middle East and Africa page, or maybe we will send you a link on your next email. Always about email, I hope you received the link to one of the different available database of scans that can be used and imported in Wireless Workbench. That said, we can finally jump in into our software, and we will focus a lot on this part of the software. But not only that, we will also discuss a little bit how in real life, in our frequency coordination, in our RF activities, these inclusion groups can be useful and used. So, what is first of all, what are we talking about? Let's see a classic example. I import some frequencies from my inventory. Today, as I needed a lot of frequencies, I decided to not to use my existing devices, but to go completely virtual. I'm loading a certain amount of devices, a total of 40 channel of PSM 1000 G10. G10 is 470, 520, 34, if I'm not mistaken. And some X in digital G56 that is 470, 636. So I have a different devices overlapping in terms of frequencies. I import them and I hit calculate. Now, if we see the calculation and we look at it a little better, starting from 470 and ending at 700 megahertz in our window, we can see that the frequencies are distributed all over the spectrum, plus there is an overlap between in-ear monitors and microphones. But let's say that for some reason someone is telling us that this is not the way we can go. We may have two different reasons not to go this way. Reason number one can be that in a certain place, in a certain country, not all the spectrum is allowed. In this occasion, we will use the user group. So let's see what is this about. First of all, I have two different box to tick. This is to enable and to have the user groups taken into consideration for frequency coordination. I have different lists that are built according to different regulations. In United Kingdom, in England, we can use TV channel 38, two bands that are free of license, 823, 832, or 863, 865, and then 1785, 1805 that are way above our TV broadcast area. And we can, in this case, we may calculate frequencies only in the unlicensed parts of the spectrum in UK. Australia has different regulations if you are indoor or outdoor. And we can also decide to build our own custom group. One example that comes to my mind is Egypt, where I can operate from 470 megahertz to 604 megahertz. I hope I'm not mistaken, but should be quite sure. And I can rename the group, calling it Egypt. I save it, and I select my custom group, my custom list. User group is Egypt. Therefore, I save everything. It will highlight the area where my frequencies can be calculated. Quite a lot of them are outside the area, even though now they are mostly backup frequencies. Let's try to calculate again. We obviously got a little less backup frequencies, but we still have. Stop the calculation. Off. We have all our frequencies below the highest frequencies that's considered 604. Even the highest backup frequency is 603,475. So this is what custom groups are for, to adapt to situations where certain frequencies are not allowed at all. So this is applying to every and each device part of our coordination. So if I select this custom group, I will not be allowed to put anything above 604 megahertz. Inclusions group are a little more flexible and can be used in combination with custom groups, obviously, and give us the opportunity to do some other things. So let's clear the coordination workspace. And let's select for this first exercise only PSM 1000. As I said, the tuning range is about 60 meg from 470. I will tell you the exact frequency. I think it's 534, but I'm not totally sure. We can anyway look at it in different places in the software. We select all the PSM 1000. We hit calculate, and they will be spread around their tuning range. So, okay, I was wrong because the highest frequency is 540. Just let me check now. Okay. The highest frequency available is 542, sorry, not 534, as I said before. So I have all my frequencies divided all over the tuning range of the device. But for some reason, I may be asked to coordinate my in-ear monitors only in a certain area. In example, I may be asked to coordinate everything between 470 and 500. I don't think we can have 24 PSM 1000 there, but we'll see. And for this reason, I want to use an inclusion group. A list is made by multiple groups. Then I can decide to which group any device belongs. For the time being, I select group 1, and I decide that I want to be 470 515. Okay. Now, one interesting thing is that I can decide to give a color to the group. Today, yellow? No, yellow is already news, so let's go orange. And as you can see, this area is colored in orange. Maybe I have another inclusion group that is in gray. So this area between 470 and 500 is gray plus orange, and the custom group is in yellow. So I have 3 shades on my screen. But in this moment, if I hit calculate again, my frequencies are still spread all over the place. The reason is that I didn't assign the devices to the inclusion group. So if I'm doing a custom list, I do not have an inclusion list. I don't have to assign anything because my coordination will be kept inside that area. But with inclusion group, I need to assign the devices to the inclusion group. So I go back to, I can do it from the inventory page. I select all my devices. And in the coordination, I can decide they will be assigned to group number 1. Of course, I need to apply. Now, all my PSM 1000 will be assigned to group number 1. But here, they know nothing about it. So I need to empty the coordination workspace and fill it again. So I manually keep my PSM 1000. Oops. And I put them in the coordination workspace. They have this new setting, new property. So they are assigned to group inclusion group 1, and I can patients one by one. I'm sure there is a faster way to do it. Okay. And now, if I hit calculate, they will stay into their inclusion group. That is from 470 to 515. Now, the reason why I want to do it, the reasons why I want to do it may be different. I'm in an area shared with different RF players, and that portion of spectrum is assigned to me. In that case, I can decide to use both an inclusion list, an inclusion group, or a custom group, because all my frequencies will be there. But let's assume that I also have microphones, and I want to keep the microphones separated from the ear monitors. There is a guard band that is recommended. It's about 15 megahertz. If possible, always keep the in-ear monitors and the microphones 15 meg apart. Let's try to ask to the software to do so. I have my list. I have my group 1 that's called in-ear monitor, and I built another group that I will call microphones. The group made of microphones, we said 470, 515, so we'll start 530 megahertz and we'll end up 620. Actually, in this moment, it doesn't really matter because I already have a user group limiting my bandwidth to 604. Of course, I can assign a color to this inclusion group as well. I clear my workspace. Yes, go back to inventory. and assign all my microphones to the inclusion group called mic. This time it will be faster because I get all the frequencies from the inventory into my coordination workspace, and I hit calculate. At this point, I will have a complete segregation between in-ear monitors and microphones. Because the number of microphones is relatively small, it's quite comfortable for the software to coordinate, and it will try to keep as much distance as possible between in-ear monitors and mics. I was able to calculate 32 plus 20, 20 mics and 20 in-ear monitors, plus the backup frequencies that are automatically calculated by the software itself. So in this scenario, I keep apart my mics and my in-ear monitors. This is very important because in-ear monitors can be pretty loud in terms of RF, and we are talking easily. I mean, with PSM 1000, we can have 100 milliwatt. Under certain circumstances, if you think about big events such as the Olympics or most likely the Super Bowl final or this kind of big events in big spaces, you may find out that your in-ear monitors are amplified even more than 100 milliwatt. In most of the countries, this is required a special authorization, but if you're running the Olympics, this can get handy to know. You may have this authorization, therefore you may shoot, let's say 1 watt or 5 watts, 4 watts out of your in-ear monitors. If you have the antennas of the mics in the close proximity of the antennas of in-ear monitors, you are creating an effect, but even with 100 milliwatt, don't take me wrong, you can make very nice damage. You can have an effect of desensitizing the input. So of course you have to be careful not to overload your antennas, as well as keep the noise floor, especially in the region of where your receivers are tuned. You can try to keep your noise floor as low as possible. This is giving you a wider range. What I mean is keep separated your microphones from your in-ear monitors, and they will work better. You will have a better signal to noise ratio. You will have extended range without boosting anything. You will just keep your RF environment much more clear. In the same way, it will be clearer for the in-ear monitors receivers on stage because they won't have microphones around tuned in the same frequency band. So your coordination will be more efficient and your setup will end up working better. But there is another reason why we may like to use inclusion group. In this inventory, as you can see, I'm quite a fan of the Beatles, and I decided that the Beatles today have 16 backing vocals, plus their 4 singing mics. Of course, this is out of time, but doesn't matter. It works for our example. So how can I make sure that my most important microphones are in a more robust coordination than the least important? So how can I make sure that the 4 Beatles have better frequencies and more robust coordination than the backing vocal number 16? There is a way. There are a couple of ways actually. One of them, let's use. One of them I'll show you right away now. Oops, I'm getting only 39 out of 40 frequencies. Doesn't matter, for the time being it's fine. When I go to assign and deploy, what's wrong with me today? When I go to assign and deploy, I can see that my frequencies have a ranking. It can be 3-star or 2 stars. 2 stars meaning that for some reason there is something not so good with this frequency. So there can be two things. They are too close to a TV channel, but I didn't set up any TV channel today, or the noise floor on that specific frequency is higher than the optimal one. So this is the first way I can decide to use to make sure that my most important channels are on good frequencies. But there is also another way that I may use, and it's creating an inclusion group that is exactly the same. Let's say let's work on the Inear monitors now. Oops, this is exclusion, sorry. I can create an inclusion group that is exactly the same than my Inear monitor group. So 470, 515. And then, oops, let's rename it. This will rename it, it will be renamed money Inear monitor. So there is it's not uncommon to call the most important channels the money channels, because they are what pay the bill usually. So the money channels are the channels that need to be treated differently. So now I go to my inventory and I assign the 4 most important Inear monitor channels to the inclusion group money Inear monitor. Now I go back to my frequency coordination page, clear everything and import everything from scratch, probably the fastest way in this case. I notice 2 things. Better, I notice one for the time being. That my frequencies are not enough to have everything calculated in standard mode. We'll see more in details what this standard, more frequencies, and more robust mode mean in the next episode of the webinar. But they are somehow self-explanatory. So I can decide that I need more frequencies for my Inear monitors, but I want to prioritize my money-making channels. So what I do, I select the PSM 1000 in the Inear monitor group, and I change the compatibility level to more frequencies. So I do a more aggressive coordination on these channels. But at the same time, I want my money-making channel to be more robust. Now, if I hit calculate again, let's see what happens. Oh, actually not much, because I'm still missing a few frequencies here and there. In this case, one thing I can try to do is to tell Wireless Workbench to invert the coordination order. So calculate my main channels first and then the other. At this point, I have all my most important mics coordinated in a robust mode, And then I have 14 frequencies out of 16 that I requested for my not so important mics. There are ways, obviously, to squeeze out more frequencies. One of them is probably to change the compatibility of the most important mic from robust to standard. And now I got all my frequencies. My money-making in-ear monitors will still be protected. Standard mode, as we saw in different occasions, it's quite robust. Wireless Workbench is really trying to protect and is very conservative as a software, and is trying to protect your coordination. And even in standard mode, you have a very reliable coordination. In case you need more frequencies, obviously, we'll see in the next episode how to squeeze this additional 1 to 10 frequencies out of a coordination when it looks like there is no more room for improvement. But yes, there is room for improvement. The only thing, to get this improvement, we need information, and we need to take an informed decision about what we prioritize. This was just a simple example to give you an idea about how we can use inclusion group to prioritize channels one versus another. Not only that, in case something has to be sacrificed, or maybe, sorry, it happened to me during a show that I was asked to perform a coordination for a certain amount of channels, but then not all of them were really needed. So let's see how I can work prioritizing certain devices, and then deciding, okay, the last two in-ear monitors are not really needed. I can, I don't know, one is for the producer and the other one is for the lighting guy. I may decide that I don't really mind about them, and I give them a copy of another mix that I have around or whatsoever. So in this case, it's helpful as well to, to tell you when to stop. Another thing we use for that is the coordination order. So I decided to coordinate first my PSM 1000, money making, then the rest of the PSM 1000, and then X in digital. Now, being X in digital in a different area of spectrum, that doesn't really make a difference. But sometimes I may have overlapping devices. I may not have enough frequencies, or I may need to take a decision about who's going first. In that case, X in digital, being a digital device, not so sensitive to intermodulation, is definitely more agile than PSM 1000, and therefore it's calculated after PSM 1000. The order of calculation is can be restored to default, pressing here. So the first group that I built goes first, as well as I can see how the devices are coordinated in based on their frequency agility. If I go, not here, sorry. If I go to my preferences, I have a coordination order for all my devices. Of course, PSM 600 comes first because it has only 2 selectable frequencies, and all the low tier of Shure very old devices will find themselves pretty high in the order, and the newest devices will be towards the end. You can decide to change this order whenever you want, as well as you can change the compatibility level of all the profiles that you have, the standard compatibility levels of the profile you have in in the software. This can be helpful to find out when there are issues. Again, another thing that I want to show you, using the same example that we have here, our PSM 1000, is that calculating in this way, I got so more frequencies first and then robust. I had 19 frequencies out of 20, but changing the order, I miss more frequencies. Instead of one only, now I miss 3 frequencies. So this has an impact on, actually now I miss 2. This has an impact also on the numbers that I have. This can be used a little random. Okay, let's see what works best, what works easier, and how I can get these more frequencies. Or it can be used to prioritize certain things and then decide, you know what, in this Inear monitor group, the last 2 frequencies are not really needed. I don't really want to calculate them. So it's about your priorities and what you want to do. But if you need all the frequencies that can be made available, there are ways to do so without compromising the stability of your system. And this is what we are gonna discuss during the next episode of this webinar. We have 2 missing. One will be, I don't remember what title I gave it, I think advanced settings. So we'll see a few examples on how to squeeze more frequencies out of our coordination and how to do some, this time I'd say high-level customization and tuning of our coordination. And then the last one that will be all about monitoring, and we'll see what are the ways for Wireless Workbench to monitor your devices. I see a question here. Inclusion group can be applied from the coordination windows also, but after applying, they can't be deployed to inventory. Good question. So I can decide to change and move these devices to no inclusion group. So I can do what I did in the inventory page. It can be done here as well. I right-click on the group of devices. I can move to a zone, or I can move them to a different inclusion group. But honestly, let's see if this is reflecting. Nope. So what I do in the coordination space stays in the coordination space. It doesn't reflect on the inventory settings. I think this is related to how the software is built. Generally, as well as I was showing you the other way around. So you change into the inventory. It doesn't reflect into the coordination workspace if you don't do it, if you don't re-import the frequencies. And as well as the opposite, if I change the settings about the inclusion group and the zones as well, that will be another topic we'll touch next week. Next week. You don't have like this connection, this bond between inventory and coordination workspace. Maybe this allows you to make a little more experiments, a little more freely. Once you deploy to inventory, they go as backup frequency. I don't know what you mean in this sentence. You can open your mic and explain, or explain further in the chat. Because I didn't get it. Further explanation. But one open mic. Okay. Any other question about inclusion and inclusion group and how they can be used or how they can be manipulated? Please ask now, or if you want to explain better this sentence that I didn't get, please. Oh no, I was amazingly clear. Everybody got everything. I mean, the concepts, I think that once they are dismantled, are of course relatively simple. There is no rocket science. What I think is interesting is how you apply this in your everyday job. I use two examples. One is to set apart in-ear monitors and mics, and this is definitely something I would recommend you to do on a daily basis. Keep a gap between in-ear monitors and mics. This will extend your operational range, will make your microphones and your in-ear monitors working just better. So there is no reason why not to do it. But you can also use it to give priority. You can use it to assign to different areas only certain portion of spectrum, even though if you are managing a multi-zone setup, there is obviously a better tool that is the zone. This is something we'll see. So I got an explanation. Amazing, a sound engineer who has a microphone that's not working. Once I apply an inclusion group in the coordination window, it doesn't reflect in the inventory page, but when you deploy frequency, they still don't reflect, but add as backup frequencies. Let's try to do so. So my PSM 1000, it's now in, sorry, let me remove the mics from the coordination space. That should make our life a little easier. I take out the mics and I only have my in-ear monitors. So I calculate them and they are meant to stay 470, 540 something, and here we are. So let's see a little more clearly what's going on here. I have my frequencies spread between 470, not really, because channel 21 in this scan is completely busy, to channel 29, 540 plus. The highest frequency I have today here is 540, 850. So when I deploy the frequency, they still don't reflect, but they are added as backup frequencies. If now I change them to an inclusion group that is in-ear monitor, and I calculate them, okay, I miss one, but for the time being, this is not very important. But they are all in the inclusion group. So when I deploy them, they will go exactly where I'm asked. So of course I have one missing frequency here that wasn't calculated, but they are all assigned and they are all below 515. That is the portion of spectrum that I allocated for the inclusion group. Because I have inclusion groups supplied in the inventory. No, I don't think so. But we can try to remove them. As I said, the coordination, but let's see. So no inclusion group. Okay. I calculate them, they stick to their portion. And of course, if I try to deploy them, I got what you mean now. Of course, yes. They will not be, I got now, sorry. I got, after a while, I got the sense of your question. Of course, this is happening because I'm having two different assignation, but when you have live devices, then it's more clear what you are moving and where. So the two devices in this moment are not the same. So the devices in coordination workspace are here, and the devices in my inventory are here. Romario is answering, is that because your inventory page is your main page and changing the group on the coordination page doesn't change it on the main page? This is why they go back up. Yes and no. I mean, yes, basically it's correct. What we are doing here is that we disconnected the properties of the inventory to the properties of a frequency coordination workspace. So they are two different, they are not seeing each other, but as long as I clear the workspace and select them from the inventory, then, oops, I got the microphones too, but they are again aligned. Some of them are missing, of course. As I said, Wireless Workbench is a very conservative software, and this is why even before I was always changing the properties in the inventory and then re-importing them into the coordination workspace. Because this will assure that you have all your things well connected. Especially when the devices are virtual, are not live, this kind of changes may be a little disorienting. So it's always suggested that you keep your inventory up to speed with your frequency coordination page. And to do so, you have to change the properties in the inventory area, not in the frequency coordination space only. You can do it, I mean, when it's just for the sake of an exercise, it doesn't really change because you see how many devices are not online, are or not coordinated. But when you have online devices, when you are in a real setup, it's very much recommended to keep your inventory in line with your frequency coordination space, and to make sure that everything is as it has to be, as you want it to be. And the best way is to have under control your inventory. To change something here, it takes a lot of time and a big effort, so it's very safe, and it's better to keep the things as they are. Meaning, reflect from the inventory, make the changes that you need to do, and then have them reflected in the coordination workspace. So I hope it was clear. For the next session, I will ask Ranjan to send his questions in advance so I don't get confused. Thank you very much, because it's always interesting to see different experiences. And as much as I know the software, there are still areas that may not be 100% clear, or I may not even, like, I have my method, and I'm sure any of you people connected has a different method to achieve the same result. So this is one of the best part of the software, but there are many journeys to reach the same point. You can work in different ways. Sometimes it's exactly the same. Some other times, like this one, it's not the same thing. So we have to be always a little careful and always stress on our method to make sure that they reflect what we want to do and we don't find unexpected surprises last minute, and especially when we have devices connected. One example, exactly. Thank you very much. One good example is I get last minute some frequencies to assign to the cameraman. I can apply inclusion group last moment directly in the frequency coordination workspace, and then I don't have to deploy them physically to anything, so I just don't care. While if it's an online device, it's much better to work on the inventory. Yes, another example is that if I request an additional frequency on this coordination workspace, an X in digital, whatever, I request a few more channels. I can request, actually I can request even a single frequency for a quad receiver, or two frequencies for a quad receiver. They won't reflect as well in the inventory. They will be in this coordination, and as soon as I clear the coordination workspace, they will disappear. Do I get any other question? As usual, you can submit additional questions or suggestion, any feedback using the form that is included in the emails that you should be receiving from our marketing team. And about it, I promised you a few weeks ago that we were going to discuss Dante, and we are working on it with Audinet. So stay tuned. That very soon you will get them in the. You will get some more information in your emails about Dante. I think that in these days we have a lot of webinars, and it's not really my job to give you training on Dante itself. What I think can be more interesting is to have an overview about how Dante can be included in the setups and in installations in the Audio Pro world. What are the benefits? What are eventually some concerns we may have? I remember a few years ago, I wasn't a lover of this Ethernet cable on my stage at all, but with the time I changed my mind, and I found out that more knowledge was meaning less fear of Ethernet cable, and they can be extremely helpful on a stage, in touring situation, and in general in our setups. So there will be a discussion on audio over IP with Audinet sometime soon, and I hope you will enjoy it and you will join it. So thank you very much. This session will happen again on Sunday, and then next Tuesday there will be the last episode about frequency coordination, and then our schedule will continue regularly next Sunday and the following Tuesday with the last episodes of his webinar, and at some point you will get the announcement of his discussion about audio over IP. Thank you very much for your time and for joining me, and I hope to see you soon in a real live environment. Thank you very much, and I wish you have a good day. Bye.